road as temperatures start to fall away. It's a frosty start to Thursday for a good chunk of the UK. The odd shower for Pembrokeshire and Cornwall, and still 1 or 2 for Lincolnshire and Norfolk. But apart from that, most places on Thursday having a sparkling day of winter sunshine, but it will be colder. Only 4 or 5 the top temperature for most places. It'll turn quite cold on Thursday night as well, and we're going to continue to have frosty mornings in the outlook. But with high pressure moving back in, not much rain in the outlook either, with many places staying dry into the weekend.
Hello there, I'm Eamon.
And I'm Isabel.
And you're watching the GB News digital stream across the United Kingdom.
And around the world.
If you're here in the UK, you can also watch us on your TV screen. GB News is Freeview channel 236.
On Sky, we're channel 515.
626 on Virgin Media.
Just remember, you might need to retune your TV to watch the channel.
Yeah, and if you are doing that, find out more about retuning by going to gbnews.uk.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilized conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamon.
And Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
No spin, no bias, no censorship. I'm Dan Wootton. Tonight, as Omicron exposes Project COVID fear, is it finally time to ditch all Plan BS measures, including masks? I'll expose the worst examples of the Corona Fear Factory and demand Boris ignores calls to keep our country muzzled in my digest. Then my superstar panel will respond. Tonight, former editor, current columnist at the Daily Star, Dawn Neeson, the Conservative commentator, Calvin Robinson, and author and journalist Rebecca Reid. We'll tackle the country's fight for freedom in the clash at 9:22 as Tory MP Andrew Bridgen and journalist Dame Esther Ranson go head-to-head over whether it's time for the PM to lift restrictions once and for all. Would you be able to trust a reformed ISIS runaway? Tarina Shakil, the Staffordshire mum who rose to infamy as the so-called Tawi Jihadi after becoming the first British woman jailed for joining the death cult, reveals in her first live TV interview her battle to turn her life around after being de-radicalized. Also on the show, it was a tale of 2 very different leaders today.
I'm deeply sorry for misjudgments that were made. And yes.
And you support the Prime Minister unequivocally.
Is that a sign that Dishy Rishi could be about to stab Bojo in the back? GB News star Darren Grimes will analyse the Chancellor's refusal to fully endorse the PM and explain why he's also losing faith in his former hero, that's in The Outsider. As 84% of Australians support Novak Djokovic's deportation, will the saga embolden its authoritarian leaders to ring-fence the country beyond COVID? Australian writer and lawyer Helen Dale joins me to discuss the formerly freedom-loving nation's terrifying descent into what's starting to look like a police state. As Little Miss Forgetful forces the BBC into a petty clarification over a reportage of her courtroom showdown. Is there anything Meghan won't complain about for publicity? Royal biographer Robert Jobson tackles her latest gripe and crown jewels. Former Downing Street Svengali Dominic Cummings is on a relentless quest to topple Boris. So, can we actually trust a word that he's saying, given his porcupines in the past? Plus, should the government axe cruel and irresponsible plans to force the NHS to sack unvaccinated staff from next month? And today's embarrassing U-turn on restrictions proves just how wrong Sturgeon got it on Omicron. But it's not the first time she's failed the Scottish people. This hilarious rap, I think, puts it best. Much more of that later in the Media Buzz. Plus, I'll bring you a first look at tomorrow's newspaper front pages and crown the next greatest Britain and Union jackass. This is Dan Wootton Tonight. Let's go. Just one thing first, though. Scotland's scheming Sturgeon proved today she's the COVID hysteric to end all COVID hysterics, and won't admit when she's made a mistake. Despite removing all Omicron restrictions, which were totally over the top and unnecessary in the first place, she stood by their imposition.
A combination of booster vaccinations, the willingness of the public to adapt their behaviour to help stem transmission and the temporary protective measures introduced in December has helped blunt the impact of the Omicron wave. The rise in cases driven by Omicron peaked in the first week of January, and that we are now on the downward slope of this wave of cases.
So, the three main restrictions removed from Monday are nightclub closures and table service requirement for hospitality venues, the 3-household limit on indoor gatherings, and that awful COVID passport scheme. But, and there's a big but, mask mandates and economy-destroying work-from-home guidance remains. I hope Boris will do much better tomorrow when he is expected to unravel Plan BS. I'll give my verdict on why he must unmuzzle England in my digest very shortly. But first, the news with Miranda Shunka.
Thank you. Good evening. Your top stories. Boris Johnson has insisted he thought a gathering in Number 10's garden during lockdown in 2020 was a work event. His former chief advisor Dominic Cummings claims the Prime Minister lied to MPs about it. Boris Johnson denies the claim but has apologised for what he calls a misjudgment.
Nobody told me, and nobody said that this was something that was against the rules, that was a breach of the COVID rules, or we were doing something that wasn't a work event.
COVID restrictions brought in to slow the spread of the Omicron variant in Scotland will be lifted next week. First Minister Nicola Sturgeon announced nightclubs can reopen from Monday. There'll be no limits on numbers at indoor events, and social distancing will be scrapped. Police officers didn't have adequate first aid training at the time of the Manchester Arena bombing in 2017. That's according to an inquiry into the attack, which has heard evidence about the time it took for the injured to receive treatment. Some officers at the scene hadn't received the recommended amount of first aid training, but Greater Manchester Police say the force is now compliant. The White House is warning that Russia could launch an invasion of Ukraine at any time. The US Secretary of State Antony Blinken will meet Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov in Geneva on Friday to try and de-escalate the situation. White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki has said the consequences will be severe if Russia doesn't take the diplomatic path.
Putin has created this crisis by amassing 100,000 Russian troops along Ukraine's borders. This includes moving Russian forces into Belarus recently for joint exercises and conducting additional exercises on Ukraine's eastern border. So let's be clear. Our view is this is an extremely dangerous situation. We're now at a stage where Russia could at any point launch an attack in Ukraine.
Well, meanwhile, the Ukrainian ambassador to the UK has told GBNews the rest of the world is beginning to appreciate the threat Russia poses.
Our partners in NATO and around the globe start to understand what we've been saying for so many years, that they are coming to something. They can't just sit there, shoot over the touchline. They will have to do something. They can't keep the thousands of troops at our border. I would ask all our partners to help with everything they can. And believe me, I should be modest, but I also expect any sort of help, boots on the ground as well.
And there's been first-round success for British #1 tennis star Emma Raducanu, who's won her match in 3 sets at the Australian Open. The 19-year-old beat America's Sloane Stephens. She fought back from losing the second set 6-2 to win the third. Well, on TV, online and DAB+ radio, this is GB News. Now back to Dan Wootton tonight.
I want to start tonight by exposing COVID Project Fear using a specific example involving 2 of the worst offenders. Just last month, less than 6 weeks ago, Sky News interviewed a member of Independent Sage, Professor Christina Pagel, about the Omicron variant, which by that point we already knew was milder, according to highly regarded South African medics and scientists. But in this interview, unchallenged by Sky News, Pagel said we have plenty of reason to think this could be the worst variant yet.
I mean, the timing couldn't be worse. I mean, it really couldn't be worse. We're in the middle of winter. It's the Christmas season. It's when, you know, as your reporter was saying, you know, the hospitality industry in particular is hoping to make up some losses. And we're all getting ready for Christmas. I mean, it is the worst timing, but that's the way it's fallen. I mean, we can't change that. And we have plenty of reason to think this could be the worst variant yet. So, yeah, I think it's not proportionate. We do have to act as if it's worse. And unfortunately, that means I think the government should be footing the bill to support those industries as we put in a few more measures.
Sky News, looking to spread the fear even further, decided to tweet this disinformation to its 7.4 million followers with the terrifying headline, "The timing couldn't be worse." And they even added to that fear by calling this woman a member of SAGE rather than a member of Independent Sage, which, by the way, is not officially recognised. Of course, we know by now that both Pagel, the left-wing activists of Independent Sage, SAGE itself, Sky News, Wes Streeting, the Labour Party, Michael Gove and everyone else warning of dire consequences from Omicron were dead wrong. In fact, it is providing us the path out of this pandemic. But the reason I wanted to use this specific example tonight is that it shows we should never listen to the fear factory again. These folks simply regurgitated dire COVID warnings for 23 months, dismissing positive data suggesting Omicron itself isn't a deadly variant for the vast majority, and it is time they are called out for it publicly. It's also why Boris Johnson must ditch all Plan BS measures next week. We know now they are futile at stopping the spread of the highly transmissible Omicron. They are economy and life destroying, and they were never needed in the first place. The time has come to ignore those who have got it wrong throughout this pandemic, like that mad woman from Independent Sage. And that's why I am very disturbed to read today the usual morons are encouraging Boris to keep the country muzzled. I have never felt stronger that mask mandates must go too, both in terms of law and guidance. Obviously in classrooms first, because forcing our poor kids to cover their faces for 8 hours a day to appease the rabid teaching unions when adults don't have to is one of the biggest disgraces of the entire pandemic, and that is certainly saying something. Not only do we know that masks are ineffective in stopping the spread of Omicron, they provide a visual trigger that we remain in crisis. And it would spark another mass Tory backbench rebellion too. Red Wall Tory MP Lee Anderson warned in the Daily Telegraph today, "I'm of the mind that as a Conservative, that people can make their own minds up if they want to wear a face mask." And Bob Blackman, who was Executive Secretary of the 1922 Committee, added, "I don't see any point in having rules that everyone is ignoring." We must accept the crisis is in the past, as even cases now plummet, and we must block out those scaremongers who have lapped up the attention and been amplified by dishonourable actors like Sky News. In fact, I would say the biggest crisis we face is from those determined to keep us living totally unnecessarily, as if we are in the grip of a killer pandemic for another moment longer. But to respond now, my superstar panel, former editor of the Daily Star, Dawn Neeson, the Conservative commentator Calvin Robinson, and the author and journalist Rebecca Reid. Dawn Neeson, we don't need to be muzzled any longer.
I don't understand why we are being forced to live in this state of fear still, Dan. There is absolutely no reason behind it whatsoever. And I think you quite rightly pointed out there the effect on children, school students, is the worst. I mean, we know that 94% of teachers say that is hindering teaching children. 80% of children say their education is suffering. And when you talk at very, very young children, 23% die in our children's development, little kids. They are being affected by this, and it is pointless, absolutely pointless. And a quick personal note, I was on the on the tube the other day, and I was wearing my exemption badge, fine, and there was this chap who glared at me. He was wearing a mask. Well, it wasn't a mask, it was a filthy piece of material. Wearing a mask, glared at me.
It's probably carrying more bacteria than anything you're wearing.
And the thing is, Dan, he was probably close on morbidly obese, and he had a packet of cigarettes stuck in the back pocket of his jeans.
And he's judging you.
And he's judging me because I wasn't wearing a mask. I mean, this is where we are now.
Exactly. And I don't want to judge anyone, but just let live. Rebecca Reid, do you agree that if we keep these mask mandates in place, the message that we're sending out is that we remain in some sort of health emergency?
I mean, I think getting rid of them certainly did feel like a kind of moment in the summer where we were like, it's over, everything's fine. I also love it when you call them muzzles. It makes me so happy. I don't know why, it really amuses me. My thing about the masks is either you need to do what they've done in some European countries and mandate the proper, I can't remember what they're called, FP37s or something. Either mandate those or don't have
Can we not do that,
But
please?
the stupidest
Can we not mandate those?
But if you're going to
please?
have a mask mandate, have masks that actually work. Having a dirty piece of cotton you bought off Etsy is not helping anybody.
Oh, they do work. They work for what they're intended to do. Spread fear, keep us all submissive and compliant with the government policies. Thank you for showing that stage clip, by the way, because hearing that woman say that Omicron might be the worst variant, and there are plenty of reasons, without giving us those reasons, and without apologising, without Independent Sage backing it up or coming out later to retract it, and without Sky News retracting it, and without Twitter taking it down as misleading. It's all very obvious what's going on here.
But I very deeply disagree that this is like, there's a big room full of people being like, how do we freak them out more? The problem with that is that somebody who works in social media at Sky, their job is to get the most interaction possible with their tweets, and they know that pulling out the scariest line from any interview gives you the most reaction.
The media line is, but the government's policy from day one was to worst-case scenario and terrorise the population.
And that was literal disinformation, though, everything that woman said. Plus, Sky News said that she was part of SAGE, which is an official government body. In fact, she's a member of Independent SAGE, which is a extreme hard-left lobby group.
But that's a genuine mistake.
I know, but as Calvin says, why has Twitter not taken it down? Because Sky News is going with the COVID orthodoxy,
anybody flag it?
which is to spread fear.
Has
well, I don't know,
anybody
but I have
flagged
to
it?
thank our amazing viewers, actually, because it was one of them, Calvin, wasn't it, who flagged it to both you and me this morning. And thank you so much, because the great thing with GB News is we have an army of you out there. And believe me, I read everything you send me, I read everything you email me, and thank you for pointing out that clip, because Sky News must be called out for their terrible disinformation. I want to move on, though, because breaking tonight, and this is very potentially significant, the Daily Telegraph's associate editor, Christopher Hope, very well connected in the Tory party, is reporting that 20 Tory MPs from the 2019 general election intake are planning to submit letters of no confidence in Boris Johnson tomorrow. He adds that the number could breach the 54 letters required for a no-confidence vote. One MP reportedly described the alleged Downing Street party before Prince Philip's funeral last year as sickening and the final straw. Now, I'm giving this report a lot of credence, Dawn Neeson, because if there is one Westminster insider who is tapped into the Tory backbench, it is Christopher Hope. He says there's been 3 meetings over the course of today. God, could we be seeing a confidence vote far sooner than any of us expected?
Well, 54 MPs need to submit letters, don't they, to the 1922 committee to say they have no confidence in the Prime Minister, and then it's still not cut and dried what happens after that. Boris could still survive. But it wouldn't surprise me, and obviously the Red Wall new intake of Conservative MPs are the ones most vulnerable in all of this as well, so they are fighting for their own livelihood. But you can't blame any of them for being furious. I think we all felt the same, that you hoped that Boris Johnson would prove to be stronger than he is, but he's not a leader, is he?
Well, Calvin, the issue that I have is that I gave this advice to Boris Johnson last week. Don't hide away, don't cower, take the lead, show that you can be a leader. That interview with Beth Rigby today, which I'm going to play later in the show, was nothing short of pathetic. Now, I find it pretty ironic, by the way, that it's Beth Rigby conducting this interview, given that she broke COVID regulations last year at Kay Burley's big birthday bash, despite the fact that they both claimed to hold politicians to account for these ridiculous rules. But we saw no fighting spirit from Boris Johnson, Calvin.
I'm convinced he's watching GB News, though, because I also said on Saturday that if he wants to turn this around, he has to get rid of the restrictions and also take control of our borders. And Sunday he comes out with this Operation Red Meat announcement. All of it sounds very good, all the promises, but it's because he's desperate.
Rebecca Reid, where do you stand on this from the left's point of view? Do you think it's a necessary thing for Boris Johnson to go? Because there is an argument, of course, that if Boris Johnson is this damaged, if you want a Labour government, then leave him in place.
So the best case scenario from a sort of lefty point of view would be for him to stay, because the 2024 sort of the thing everyone's going to be saying is it's time for a change. We've had, I don't know how many years that'll be, like it'll be more than 10, I think, at that point. You know, we need new blood, we need a new person. It's time for a change, no more Conservatives. And if we have a change now, then that strategy isn't going to work so well. So from a sort of wanting to not have a Tory government, I would say it's a good thing for us if he stays. I also don't think there's anybody sensible who could replace him at the moment. I don't think Rishi wants it. I think Michael Gove would be frankly terrifying, because I'm convinced he's having a midlife crisis. So overall, I'm torn between wanting to win the next election and also kind of wanting the country not to go down the flames.
A fourth term is going to be difficult for anyone, isn't it? Because the change message is strong. I think the good thing is that you've got Keir Starmer, the leader of no opposition, who is hardly strong. Rebecca Reid, Calvin Robinson, Dawn Neeson do stand by. My superstar panel are here all night. But coming up, after very different TV interviews, as I just mentioned, GB News star Darren Grimes will analyse the Chancellor's refusal to fully back the PM. Is Rishi about to stab Bojo in the back? That's in The Outsider at 9:30. But next in the clash, Tory MP Andrew Bridgen and journalist Dame Esther Ranson go head-to-head over whether it's time for the PM to lift restrictions once and for all. But of course, your verdict, most important to me. My email address, dan@gbnews.uk. Tweet me using the handle @gbnews. And we've got a poll running right now, so vote in that too. I'll bring you the results straight after the break.
Good evening. A bit of rain around tonight and tomorrow as a band of wet weather moves southwards. Behind it, brighter skies will follow, but also we'll see a cold wind starting to increase. The winds have been pretty light recently thanks to high pressure, but weather fronts are slowly edging in. Been bringing some rain across western Scotland and Northern Ireland through the afternoon, and that wet weather will continue to trickle southwards. We'll see a little bit arriving across the far north of England through this evening, and some fog likely to thicken up once more across the south. That could be quite dense during this evening as well, so just be aware of that if you're heading out on the roads. Further north, we'll see another area of rain come into Scotland, Northern Ireland and later northwest England. Could see some pockets of frost across the south where the skies stay clear, but generally staying a touch above freezing, certainly for most towns and cities. Quite a grey start then tomorrow across northern England, Wales, with a bit of rain, and could be some heavier bursts of rain for a time across southwest England. The rain will be fairly light and patchy across East Anglia and the southeast around the early afternoon before it clears away. And as I said, most places brightening up with sunny spells. Temperatures around average, but feeling colder with the wind. And that wind will be bringing some snow showers across the Northern Isles and even into the mainland of Scotland. Some snow is possible through the evening. It could turn icy as well. Ice, sleet and snow showers also then move down the eastern side of England during the course of tomorrow night. Scattered, but as I said, could cause a few issues on the road as temperatures start to fall away. It's a frosty start to Thursday for a good chunk of the UK. The odd shower for Pembrokeshire and Cornwall, and still 1 or 2 for Lincolnshire and Norfolk. But apart from that, most places on Thursday having a sparkling day of winter sunshine, but it will be colder. Only 4 or 5 the top temperature for most places. It'll turn quite cold on Thursday night as well, and we're going to continue to have frosty mornings in the outlook. But with high pressure moving back in, not much rain in the outlook either, with many places staying dry into the weekend.
Hello there, I'm Eamon.
And I'm Isabel.
And you're watching the GB News digital stream across the United Kingdom.
And around the world.
If you're here in the UK, you can also watch us on your TV screen. GB News is Freeview channel 236.
On Sky, we're channel 515.
626 on Virgin Media.
Just remember, you might need to retune your TV to watch the channel.
Yeah, and if you are doing that, find out more about retuning by going to gbnews.uk.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamon.
And Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
Time now for the clash. According to the latest figures from NHS England, 44% of beds occupied by COVID patients in England are actually being treated for something else. In London, the number of so-called incidental admissions was even higher, with 51.2% of COVID patients having been admitted for an entirely different reason before they tested positive, probably with Omicron, a little virus, which I've had. Don't be scared of it, honestly. These figures come as the number of patients in hospital with COVID in Britain has now declined anyway to 19,450 after peaking on January the 10th at 19,918, while weekly case numbers around the UK have also dropped by 41%, with one government advisor saying Britain might have a flu-type relationship with the virus by the end of the year. Even the World Health Organization's special envoy for COVID, Dr. David Nabarro, has said that the end of the pandemic is in sight for the UK. And with Boris considering axing Plan B next week, is it time to finally lift all COVID restrictions? And I mean all, masks as well, once and for all. Send me your thoughts on this. I want to hear from you, Dan, at gbnews.uk, at GBNews on Twitter too. And we've got our Twitter poll running there right now. I'll bring you the results very shortly. But to help you make your mind up, let me bring in my two guests tonight. The Conservative MP for North West Leicestershire, Andrew Bridgen. Andrew, I'm going to ask you about some of the political developments tonight in just a moment too. And legendary BBC broadcaster, Dame Esther Ranson. Andrew Bridgen, look, we'll talk about Boris soon, but let's put him to one side. Regardless of the political crisis that we're in, all the data shows there's no need for Plan B. There's no need for mask mandates. They've all got to go now, surely.
Well, I was one of 101 Conservative MPs who voted against Plan B. It was unnecessary. What we've seen is that even of the home nations, the devolved nations, where they put more strict COVID restrictions on than England did, they ended up with higher or comparable infection rates. Yes, we need to get rid of all the Plan B restrictions, including the masks. The masks are basically ineffective the way most people wear them. The surgical type disposable masks that most of us wear, they're actually to stop blood and body fluids getting near the mouth of medical workers. They're not for preventing viruses being transmitted. It is just part of a pandemic of fear that has been pumped out for far too long. I was a big supporter of the nudge department in number 10. But I'm afraid during the pandemic, the nudge department became the shove department, and people, I don't like my constituents being shoved around, and it's time to drop the lot of it. And if we hadn't implemented Plan B, we wouldn't have spent £6 billion on lateral flow tests. That's 4 times more than Germany spent, twice as much as France. And what effect has actually had on the spread of the Omicron variant? Very, very little. It's very mild, as we suspected from South Africa. We should see what they've been doing and the way they've recovered from it. And if we get out of it now, and Boris will announce this tomorrow that we're dropping Plan B, we're going to have first mover advantage. We're going to get our economy going, and we desperately need that so we can cut taxes.
Yeah, and I looked at the numbers that you'd crunched involving the tests, Andrew. I mean, it's just extraordinary. £40 million a day, you say we're spending at the moment. That's £1 billion a month. Insanity. Esther Ranson, why is Andrew Bridgen wrong?
Well, the first thing I'd like to say is to the relatives and friends and colleagues of more than 150,000 people who died of COVID, I want you to recognise that we take those deaths very seriously. We care about your loss, and we want to protect people from suffering the tragedy you've been through. Yesterday, there was a spike in deaths. 438 people died yesterday, according to the figures. And even if you look at the statisticians' calculations to see how many of those actually died from COVID, 4 out of 5 of those deaths were from COVID. That is 350 people plus. That's an awful lot of people every week still dying. Now, I am vulnerable. I'm 81 years old. People in my age group are vulnerable. I live with a daughter with underlying health conditions. She's vulnerable. So that I think what we have to do is calculate whether the lives we've lost are valuable, are precious, and whether we care about them. And can I just say, Dan, calling masks muzzles implies that the people wearing masks are attack dogs. And sometimes when I listen to you and your panel, I can see why that might be appropriate.
Well, Esther, I'm sorry. I feel like when I'm wearing a mask, I am muzzled. And these are designed to spread fear. But look, actually, Esther, you were talking to me at the start of your answer because my Aunt Celia is one of those victims of COVID, and she died during the pandemic. She had serious dementia. She had been unwell for a very, very long time. She was one of those people I was talking about last night who had underlying health conditions, Esther. And when you look at those numbers, you must accept that it's stark. The vast majority of the people who have died were very ill anyway. Now, that isn't to say the over 17,000 who have died with no underlying conditions are not a great tragedy. But do you not understand that the 150,000 figure is quite misleading?
Well, it's quite high, isn't it? I mean, if you compare it with other nations, we don't look very good in the world record of deaths. And I'm afraid it's because I think we took this serious illness far less than seriously at the beginning of the lockdown. We thought we could get away with things like the Cheltenham race meeting, football matches, pop concerts. And for me, I would have preferred the lockdown to happen earlier because...
And I know, Esther, but I don't know if you're looking at these new statistics from the ONS, which I reported on the show last night. They were only revealed on Sunday. I think, Esther, they'll probably surprise and shock you. Do you know that the number of deaths purely from COVID with no other underlying causes throughout all of 2020 was 9,400 folk, just 9,400. In 2021, we only have the figures, by the way, up until the end of Q3, so it's about 3/4 of the year, just 7,971 deaths of folk with no underlying causes. Now, they are ONS data.
Absolutely. And my daughter has an underlying health condition. She has ME. Any infection she gets is very serious. So, and my closest friend has very high blood pressure. So she has an underlying health issue and indeed has had pneumonia 3 times. So what would you say? That they've brought it on themselves if they die of COVID, or they don't matter if they die of COVID?
Of course not. Of course not. But Esther, what I'm saying to you is, how long does this go on for? How long do we keep restrictions on our lives? I mean, genuinely, that's not a facetious question, because I don't believe that we can keep going on living like this, living with restrictions. I think we have to start trusting the individual.
I think we have to start trusting the scientists, because thank God they have invented the most brilliant vaccines, which are the best single defense against COVID. And
so why don't we open up then?
Well, let's hope that the numbers will fall quickly enough. They haven't yet, but let's hope they do fall quickly enough for those scientists that you appear, Mr. Bridgen, to despise. And can I commiserate with you? I don't know if you watched yourself on Newsnight last night, did you?
No, of course not, because I'm broadcasting live to the nation, and I wouldn't watch that ridiculous lefty show. What happened on Newsnight, Esther?
Well, unfortunately, Mr. Bridgen was being interviewed on College Green, and a rather unpleasing gentleman was waving posters around behind his back, which is very discourteous and I think, appalling. Did you watch yourself, Andrew? Because it won't have pleased you. But anyway, the point you're making is a very good one.
The point you're making, Esther. He's the village idiot who hangs around Westminster. The Policing and Crime Bill he's protesting against enshrines his right to protest, and I will support his right to protest. I don't like the way he does it, and I think he's a very annoying individual, but I would die for his right to be able to protest, and I'm sure he'd let me as well, wouldn't he?
Andrew, I thought he was going to whack you over the head with one of the posters. But I do
Andrew, I just want Andrew to be able to respond to one of the points that you made, Esther, because Esther talks about our great scientists. And I don't disagree with her, Andrew, on the whole. I mean, absolutely, our great scientists developed the Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine, which absolutely should be one of the tools to bring this pandemic to an end. But I'm sorry, Andrew, we've also had some shockingly bad science over the course of this pandemic. And I would point you to Neil Ferguson, whose projections have been wrong time and again. So I don't just think we can say anymore, 23 months in, that we just listen to all scientists, because we can now look at the science and judge for ourselves who got it wrong. And we should stop listening to those people.
Also, I think we need to listen to and look at the science coming out of other countries. We had advance notice of what was going to happen with Omicron. It developed in South Africa. We saw the pandemic, the variant spread over there very rapidly. We knew it was going to be far more transmissible. All the data coming out of South Africa was it was going to be much milder, far less pathogenic. We implemented Plan B, which has damaged our economy again, upset the health service. And everything that came out of South Africa has actually been repeated.
Yet we had Sir Chris Whitty saying everything we know about Omicron is bad. I mean, that was a lie. That was a lie.
Not true at all. And nobody's publicising what's also come out of South Africa is that the facts are that the having had the original strain of COVID-19, the Alpha strain, the Beta strain, the Delta strain. None of those protected you from the Omicron strain. But the fact is that all the data out of South Africa shows that if you've had Omicron, which is highly transmissible, a lot of people have had it, very, very mild, most people, just like a bad cold, you're going to have protection against all the previous variants, and highly likely you'll have protection against future variants as well. That's actually really good news.
Andrew, I just want to interrupt quickly, though, because there's breaking news tonight. Christopher Hope, obviously the very well-connected associate editor of the Daily Telegraph, reporting that as many as 20 MPs from the 2019 intake are planning to submit letters of no confidence in Boris Johnson tomorrow. Now, of course, Andrew, you were one of the MPs who has already submitted a letter of no confidence. Do you believe this report from Christopher Hope to be correct?
Yes, because I was with him when they told him.
Really? So it's happening? 20
It's going to happen.
MPs.
I think that will push over the 54 required to trigger a confidence motion vote. I think Mr Brady will be, depending on what time they go in tomorrow, Mr Brady will go in to see the Prime Minister probably in the afternoon. Two things will come from that. I think we're going to be having the confidence vote probably on Tuesday or Monday next week. It'll have to be a three-line whip sitting day. Couldn't really be Thursday. That's already a one-line whip, so a lot of people will be planning not to be here. What else will happen from that is that, knowing the arch strategist and Machiavellian plotter that Mr Cummings is, he will dump every bit of ammunition he's got in his locker out as soon as that confidence vote's triggered, so that it's all out there for the weekend and people can judge what he will be releasing.
Do you think you might be going too early, Andrew Bridgen, just speaking purely politically?
There's never a wrong time to do the right thing, Dan. And what we do know is that this constant drip out of information, damaging to the Prime Minister, it's preventing the Prime Minister doing his job, it's actually paralysing the government, and that's just not tenable. So we need to resolve this matter, I believe, in the country's interest as soon as possible.
OK, and just to press you, Andrew Bridgen, do you know how many of the 2019 intake are planning to submit letters tomorrow?
I heard it will be a 20 who haven't submitted letters so far.
20. And you believe that there's already 34 letters submitted in that case?
I think it'd be very, very close to that number, yes.
Wow. OK, we're going to have a big political day coming tomorrow then. Andrew Bridgen, Conservative MP for North West Leicestershire, thank you so much. And thank you too to the legendary BBC journalist and broadcaster Dame Esther Ranson. But who do you agree with? Well, Ifeon on Twitter says, they say they want people to live with the virus, but keep restrictions, making sure that can't happen. Which is it? I think about that all the time. Robert on email says, COVID restrictions have terrorised far too many people, and it will take years before those individuals have the confidence to stand near a stranger or go out mask-free. The only way out of this is for retailers to ban people wearing masks. I love that way of thinking. Please, God, I would happily go into a shop that banned masks. Keith on Twitter says, I think most people have already had enough after Downing Street parties. I now see less people wearing masks and following rules. And your verdict now in, wow, it is overwhelming. You good people, 92% of you agree that it is time to lift all COVID restrictions, including masks. Just 8% of you want to stay muzzled, like Dame Esther. Coming up, is there anything Meghan won't complain about for publicity as she forces the BBC into a petty clarification over a reportage of her courtroom showdown? Royal biographer Robert Jobson tackles her latest gripe in Crown Jewels. The next is Dishy Richie about to stab Bojo in the back. Well, GBNews star Darren Grimes will analyse the Chancellor's refusal to fully back the PM and explain why he's losing faith in his former hero. That's in The Outsider.
Hello there, I'm Eamon.
And I'm Isabel.
And you're watching the GB News digital stream across the United Kingdom.
And around the world.
If you're here in the UK, you can also watch us on your TV screen. GB News is Freeview channel 236.
On Sky, we're channel 515.
626 on Virgin Media.
Just remember, you might need to retune your TV to watch the channel.
Yeah, and if you are doing that, find out more about retuning by going to gbnews.uk.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamon.
And Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
GB News star Darren Grimes is tonight's outsider. It was a tale of two very different politicians today as Chancellor Rishi Sunak and Prime Minister Boris Johnson faced cameras amid the ongoing furore over the BYOB party storm. The PM looked broken, actually, in his interview with Sky News rule sheet Beath Rigby in his first interview in over a week.
I'm deeply sorry for misjudgments that were made.
Misjudgments?
And yes, because ultimately,
it seems like you're trying
Beth,
to pass the blame on
I carry full responsibility for what took place. But nobody told me. I'm absolutely categorical about it. Nobody said to me, "This is an event that is against the rules." All I can say is, in retrospect, as I said to the House of Commons, Beth, if I had my time again, I would not have allowed things to have developed in that way.
He looks like a broken man. Rishi, by contrast, tellingly wouldn't fully back Boris in his interview with ITV political correspondent Daniel Hewitt, deciding to walk out rather than face more probing on the subject.
Sue Gray is conducting an inquiry into the situation. I think it's right that we allow her to conclude that job.
And you support,
Thanks very much.
You support the Prime Minister unequivocally? Your microphone.
Oh, gosh, thank you. Darren Grimes has been watching all of this closely. Darren, lots going on tonight, which I'll come to. But let's kick off with that Rishi Sunak interview. Earlier, he had raised the prospect of the ministerial code, suggesting that if Boris has lied, he could be in deep doo-doo. And I mean, there was certainly no ringing endorsement. He wanted that interview over when he was pressed about Boris's position.
Absolutely. He made absolutely clear that the ministerial code says that that is normally a resignation matter, right? That if you have lied to Parliament, misled Parliament, then you have to go. But I think, perhaps there's one very easy explanation as to why Rishi Sunak got up and dashed out of the room, and that was to go and write his letter, Dan, to the 1922 committee. Who knows? Because that's where hearings happening tonight. And I mean, actually, I was struck by what Andrew Bridgen has just told you, an exclusive for GB News there, confirming that Telegraph story and actually saying that there's never a wrong time to do the right thing. Isn't that extraordinary, Dan? Andrew Bridgen sounds more like, this is something that he is so passionate about, so driven by, that this sort of Brexit titan has all of a sudden, this Churchillian orator has been dismissed by his own ranks, his own Brexiteers. Isn't that extraordinary?
Of course. It's absolutely extraordinary. And what I found fascinating about that interview from Andrew Bridgen, which will strike fear in the heart of number 10 Downing Street this evening, is not only did he confirm, Christopher Hope's exclusive, that there are going to be 20 letters submitted by members of the 2019 intake tomorrow, he believes there's already about 30 letters submitted. So he was incredibly confident, Darren, that we're going to have this confidence vote in Boris early next week. Yep. And I wonder if Boris knows that, Darren, because in the interview with Beth Rigby today, he looked defeated. He had nothing left, Darren. This is not the Boris that I know certainly for you, you came to love. He was your hero. What has happened to Boris Johnson?
You know what? It's sad, actually. I mean, I remember in 2016, the first big political thing I ever did was introduce Boris Johnson to the people of Newcastle for the Leave campaign. And the standing ovation that he got at the end of that, a Tory in Newcastle receiving a standing ovation. I had never, ever in my life seen anything like it. But Dan, the reason was, here was a man who was speaking their language on Brexit, on patriotism, on free speech, on levelling up and whackery and wokery and all these things. This is a man who has been speaking their language, but I'm afraid he's really hurt people, frankly. And I would describe it like that. I know that sounds a bit Meghan Markle, but I really do think he's hurt them.
Oh, you're
Because here's a
going
man
soft, Darren.
I am. I'm going soft to my old age. But here's a man that could have brought about once in a generation change, right?
Yeah.
The kind of change that Mrs. Thatcher brought about, that radicalism in government.
Yeah, and he's let
But he
folk down.
squandered the opportunity.
And Darren, you've actually
exactly.
entered into this Tory civil war today because you tweeted about this subject. I know Boris Johnson can win elections, but running the country is about quite a bit more than that. No. And Culture Secretary Nadine Dorries, who remains Boris Johnson's ultimate ally, replied directly to you, Darren, taking issue with what you said. She said, it is, Darren. It's about making sure you have more people jabbed, more tests, and more antivirals than any other country in the EU in a pandemic, and emerging with the most open and fastest growing economy in the G7 over the past year. I call that governing well. Doesn't she have a point, Darren?
Look, I think Nadine is absolutely brilliant, right? She's not afraid to say it how it is, and I have the utmost respect for her and the way in which she conducts herself. But I would actually say that the premise of our argument seems to assume that COVID is the only thing that's mattered for the past 2 years. Not only is the NHS now a national COVID service, it seems to be in Nadine's argument there that apparently our government gets a free pass because of Britain's relative success when it comes to perhaps comparing ourselves to our international partners. I would actually say to Nadine, right? Doing sterling work and everything from challenging the BBC and all of these other things. What about the energy and cost of living crisis, Dan, right? What about the focus, the relentless focus on Carrie Simons' pet projects in net zero, which I suspect many people privately recognise that's going to mean the immiseration of the working class? What, leaving people, let's not forget, colder and poorer? What about post-Brexit reforms? What about Northern Ireland? What about levelling up? What about a little bit of focus on all of those issues? Because I dare say, I have to say, that I shouldn't be surprised, given number 10, right, seems to be having more parties in one pandemic than most of us will have in our entire lives, that they've not been able to focus on these things. I don't think it's illegitimate. I don't think it's unreasonable. I don't think it's disproportionate to actually say, hang on a minute, Boris Johnson has not given the office which he is in, the most important office in our land, the seriousness and I think the purpose of mission that it actually deserves, Dan. And I think many people are coming to that conclusion.
Well, it seems like many Tory MPs are, and so who knows how much longer he will be in that office. Although part of me does wonder, Darren, if maybe they've gone too early, because is there really going to be enough to boot Boris out of office? I don't know. It's certainly going to be a fascinating few days. But I agree with you that it is sad that it has come to this. Darren Grimes, tonight's Outsider. Thank you. Coming up, former Downing Street Svengali Dominic Cummings is on a relentless quest to topple Boris. But can we actually trust him, given his own porcupines in the past? Found out in our Media Buzz just after 10. But next, as Little Miss Forgetful attacks the BBC over reportage of her courtroom showdown, is there anything that Meghan just won't complain about? Royal biographer Robert Jobson joins me for Crown Jewels straight after the break.
Good evening. A bit of rain around tonight and tomorrow as a band of wet weather moves southwards. Behind it, brighter skies will follow, but also we'll see a cold wind starting to increase. The winds have been pretty light recently thanks to high pressure, but weather fronts are slowly edging in. Been bringing some rain across western Scotland and Northern Ireland through the afternoon, and that wet weather will continue to trickle southwards. We'll see a little bit arriving across the far north of England through this evening, and some fog likely to thicken up once more across the south. That could be quite dense during this evening as well, so just be aware of that if you're heading out on the roads. Further north, we'll see another area of rain come into Scotland, Northern Ireland and later northwest England. Could see some pockets of frost across the south where the skies stay clear, but generally staying a touch above freezing, certainly for most towns and cities. Quite a grey start then tomorrow across northern England, Wales, with a bit of rain, and could be some heavier bursts of rain for a time across southwest England. The rain will be fairly light and patchy across East Anglia and the southeast around the early afternoon before it clears away. And as I said, most places brightening up with sunny spells. Temperatures around average, but feeling colder with the wind. And that wind will be bringing some snow showers across the Northern Isles and even into the mainland of Scotland. Some snow is possible through the evening. It could turn icy as well. Ice, sleet and snow showers also then move down the eastern side of England during the course of tomorrow night. Scattered, but as I said, could cause a few issues on the road as temperatures start to fall away. It's a frosty start to Thursday for a good chunk of the UK. The odd shower for Pembrokeshire and Cornwall, and still 1 or 2 for Lincolnshire and Norfolk. But apart from that, most places on Thursday having a sparkling day of winter sunshine, but it will be colder. Only 4 or 5, the top temperature for most places. It'll turn quite cold on Thursday night as well, and we're going to continue to have frosty mornings in the outlook. But with high pressure moving back in, not much rain in the outlook either, with many places staying dry into the weekend.
Hello there, I'm Eamon.
And I'm Isabel.
And you're watching the GB News digital stream across the United Kingdom.
And around the world.
If you're here in the UK, you can also watch us on your TV screen. GB News is Freeview channel 236.
On Sky, we're channel 515.
626 on Virgin Media.
Just remember, you might need to retune your TV to watch the channel.
Yeah, and if you are doing that, find out more about retuning by going to gbnews.uk.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilized conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamon
and Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
Time now for Crown Jewels. Harry and Meghan haven't just given up their royal roles, they've lost all credibility with ever so convenient lapses in memory. So why are toadying execs at the BBC still bowing down to them? If you need a refresher of what I'm referring to, the Duchess of Sussex was forced to apologise to the High Court last November during her privacy case for forgetting she authorised an aide to brief that little oddball writer, Omid Scobie, of the apparently unofficial autobiography, Finding Freedom. And I've worded that quite particularly, actually, because today the Duchess turned up the pressure on the BBC over an error, she says an error, in their podcast, Harry, Meghan and the Media.
Scobie is co-author of the book Finding Freedom, and it's since been revealed that Meghan Markle cooperated with him on the project. She's apologised for misleading a court on this.
I think what he said was completely accurate, but Meghan felt the need to reach out over that 50 seconds of audio, forcing the Beeb into a grovelling apology. In a statement, the corporation said the Duchess of Sussex has asked us to clarify that she apologised to the court for not remembering email exchanges with her former Communications Secretary Jason Knauf in her evidence, and said that she had no intention to mislead the court. Funny that Meghan's decided to concern herself with the details now. Honestly, is there no fight
that the Sussexes won't pick for the attention they apparently quit the UK to avoid. Let me bring in royal author Robert Jobson now on this. Jobbo, this is just astonishing to me. I mean, what did Amol Rajan say that was wrong, and why has the BBC given in so easily?
Well, I mean, the reality is Amol, after that documentary, the BBC was on a bit of a back foot, weren't they? So they've had that, they've had the Diana issues and as well. So therefore, they're probably a bit weak in terms of anybody complaining at all. They're just going to say, how high do you want us to jump? I was very surprised. I mean, you know, all I would say on this is that it's very convenient, is that you say you didn't mislead the court, you forgot. I'm wondering how many people, if you or I had forgotten that, Dan, in a court of law, whether the judges would have been so lenient on us. Oh, we forgot that we wrote these emails, and we forgot that we said that you could cooperate with a book that I categorically stated I didn't, in a statement, cooperate with. So, you know, I don't think the general person would have got away so lightly with just saying, oh, whoops, I forgot. And that's what they're trying to say that we've got to believe. And particularly when Amol, I find it a bit rich for them to do what they did to Amol Rajan, because in that documentary that he'd made, he gave free space to Meghan and Harry's lawyer to just say whatever she wanted to say, and never gave the palace a chance to answer back. So it seems that they want to kick the man who actually was on, actually, and help them in their...
I know. But, Jobbo, look, this is a couple, they just want to moan about everything, don't they? Because, of course, we have this extraordinary situation with Prince Harry potentially suing Her Majesty's government. I mean, they just... It just feels like they're never happy and they spend their life picking fights.
Well, that one is utterly ludicrous because, you know, Princess Beatrice, Eugenie and Princess Alexandra, the Queen's first cousin, all pay for former protection officers who are just retired. They don't retire. They're not, these guys aren't walking around with walking sticks. You know, they're like 50 of them. They're young guys. They've retired and they can be rehired if they want to. You know, it may cost Prince Harry slightly less probably than the legal bills, but this is all about
certainly
challenging, it's challenging the Queen at a time when she doesn't need it.
I know.
Why does she need it?
I know.
It's embarrassing to our government and embarrassing.
Well, they're scumbags, aren't they? They're just scumbags. I mean, we've just got to accept it now. I can't even say they're anything other than complete and utter scumbags. Robert Jobson, thank you so much. Obviously, both sides of the argument here, though, on GBNews. In a written statement to the Court of Appeal in November 2021, the Duchess of Sussex said, I apologise to the court for the fact that I had not remembered these exchanges at the time. I had absolutely no wish or intention to mislead the defendant or the court. It's 10 p.m. This is Dan Wootton tonight, and still to come. Would you be able to trust a reformed ISIS runaway? British mum and the so-called Tawi Jihadi, Tarina Shakil, was jailed for fleeing to Syria, but after completing a de-radicalization program, she's working to rebuild her life, and she says help others who have fallen prey to Islamic extremists. Her first live TV interview coming up in just 20 minutes. Don't miss it, sure to be fascinating. As 84% of Australians support Novak Djokovic's deportation, will the saga embolden its authoritarian leaders to ring-fence the country beyond COVID? Australian lawyer and writer Helen Dale joins me to discuss the formerly freedom-loving nation's terrifying descent into a police state. Ex-Downing Street Svengali Dominic Cummings is on a relentless quest to topple Boris, but can we actually trust him given his own porky pies in the past? Plus, should the government axe cruel and irresponsible plans to force the NHS to sack unvaccinated staff from next month? And today's embarrassing U-turn on restrictions proves just how wrong scheming Sturgeon got it on Omicron. But it's not the first time she's failed the Scottish people, as this hilarious rap puts it. My panel will be getting jiggy with those headlines and highlights of the day in the Media Buzz, plus all of tonight's breaking news, of course, about this potential confidence vote in Boris Johnson. Tonight, I'm joined by former editor of the Daily Star, Dawn Neeson, Conservative commentator Calvin Robertson, and the author and journalist Rebecca Reid. Newspaper front pages too, and of course, we'll crown another Greatest Britain and Union Jackass before the hour is out. But first, the news with Miranda Shulka.
Thank you, Dan. Let's take a look at the top stories. Boris Johnson has insisted he thought a gathering in Number 10's garden during lockdown in 2020 was a work event. His former chief advisor, Dominic Cummings, claims the Prime Minister lied to MPs about it. Boris Johnson denies the claim but has apologised for what he calls a misjudgment.
Nobody told me, and nobody said that this was something that was against the rules, that was a breach of the COVID rules, or we were doing something that wasn't a work event.
COVID restrictions brought in to slow the spread of the Omicron variant in Scotland will be lifted next week. First Minister Nicola Sturgeon announced nightclubs can reopen from Monday. There'll be no limits on numbers at indoor events, and social distancing will be scrapped. Police officers didn't have adequate first aid training at the time of the Manchester Arena bombing in 2017. That's according to an inquiry into the attack, which has heard evidence about the time it took for the injured to receive treatment. Some officers at the scene hadn't received the recommended amount of first aid training, but Greater Manchester Police say the force is now compliant. The White House is warning that Russia could launch an invasion of Ukraine at any time. The US Secretary of State Antony Blinken will meet Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov in Geneva on Friday to try and de-escalate the situation. White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki has said the consequences could be severe if Russia doesn't take the diplomatic path.
Putin has created this crisis by amassing 100,000 Russian troops along Ukraine's borders. This includes moving Russian forces into Belarus recently for joint exercises and conducting additional exercises on Ukraine's eastern border. So let's be clear. Our view is this is an extremely dangerous situation. We're now at a stage where Russia could at any point launch an attack in Ukraine.
Well, meanwhile, the Ukrainian ambassador to the UK has told GBNews the rest of the world is beginning to appreciate the threat Russia poses.
Our partners in NATO and around the globe started to understand what we've been saying for so many years, that they are coming to something. They can't just sit there, shoot over the touchline. They will have to do something. They can't keep the thousands of troops at our border. I would ask all our partners to help with everything they can. And believe me, I should be modest, but I also expect any sort of help, boots on the ground as well.
And British #1 tennis star Emma Raducanu has won her first round match at the Australian Open in 3 sets. The 19-year-old beat America's Sloane Stephens. She fought back from losing the second set 6-2 to win the third. Well, you're up to date on TV, online and on DAB+ radio. This is GB News. Now back to Dan Wootton tonight.
Tomorrow's news tonight, now on our Media Buzz. And let's kick off with the very first look at the front pages, hot off the press. One story is going to be dominating. Of course, could this be the end for Boris Johnson? We're going to kick off with the Evening Standard from today. Boris may have to go if he lied to Commons, hints Raab. Also worth showing this. This, of course, because of the horrific image. I'm sorry if you're still eating your dinner. It probably makes you want to vomit. Matt Hancock doing his best. Daniel Craig impression. Can someone please just make that stop? No one warned me party was against rules, says man who set the rules. That's the lead on tomorrow's Independent. The paper reports that Boris Johnson is insisting that no one advised him the Number 10 garden gathering was a breach of the rules. And same headline there for the Metro, very similar anyway. Nobody told me. That's as Bojo denies being warned about the party at Number 10, despite an accusation from one of his closest aides that, of course, we'll be talking about very shortly. But let me bring my superstar panel back in for this. The former editor of the Daily Star, Dawn Neeson, the Conservative commentator, Calvin Robertson, and the author and journalist, Rebecca Reid. So, breaking tonight, Conservative MP Andrew Bridgen has exclusively confirmed to this show, the Daily Telegraph's associate editor Christopher Hope's reports that as many as 20 Tory MPs will submit letters of no confidence in the Prime Minister tomorrow. Now, they're believed to be from the 2019 intake, many of them red wall MPs with very slim majorities. And Bridgen has told me that he believes this will take the number beyond the 54 needed to trigger a vote of no confidence, which he has predicted will take place on Monday or Tuesday next week. Do you believe this report from Christopher Hope to be correct?
Yes, because I was with him when they told him.
Really? So it's happening? 20
It's going to happen. I think that will push over the 54 required to trigger a confidence motion vote.
And you believe that there's already 34 letters submitted in that case?
I think it'd be very, very close to that number, yes.
And of course, Boris Johnson will be facing off against Keir Starmer in the House of Commons tomorrow at PMQs, which you can watch live here on GB News from midday. But there's another man behind all of this chaos, former Downing Street's Fengali Dominic Cummings, who, let's be honest, is on a mission to bring down his former boss. This is what he posted online earlier. PM was told about the invite. He knew it was a drinks party. He lied to Parliament. The events of the 20th of May alone, never mind the string of other events, mean the PM lied to Parliament about parties. Not only me, but other eyewitnesses who discussed this at the time would swear under oath this is what happened. The Prime Minister was quick to deny the allegations, though.
Categorically, that nobody told me and nobody said that this was something that was against the rules, that was a breach of the COVID rules, that we were doing something that wasn't a work event.
Well, Cummings' allegations have certainly caught the attention of Sue Gray. It was confirmed tonight that he will now be interviewed as part of her investigation into alleged Downing Street parties. But I've got to ask, and I know many of you will be thinking about this at home, can we actually trust Cummings, given his porcupines in the past?
My wife was very worried, particularly given my eyesight had seemed to have been affected by the disease. She did not want to risk a nearly 300-mile drive with our child, given how ill I had been. We agreed that we should go for a short drive to see if I could drive safely.
If I just basically sent my family back out of London and said, here's the truth to the public, I think people would have understood the situation, and it was a terrible misjudgment not to do that.
So, Dawn Neeson, I know Boris Johnson is in deep trouble. I was going to say something
one
else.
way of putting it.
Deep trouble right now. But do we really want Cummings calling the shot on this? And can we trust what Cummings says, given he has been proven to have told those porcupines in the past?
Well, this is the situation we're in. We've got one proven liar potentially telling lies about another proven liar. I mean, it's that old analogy about if a tree falls in the wood and there's no one there, does it actually happen? Does anyone hear it? And, you know, should we listen to the likes of Dominic Cummings? I mean, his track record is not good, is it? And he's like some sort of demented, spurned lover in this, isn't it? It's almost like taking on a stalker tendency. He put out 25 tweets in 24 hours the other day, basically having a go at Boris. This is just pure revenge, isn't it?
Well, Calvin, it was interesting when someone suggested on Twitter that Cummings may have set up a war room, established a war room in his house to deal with all of this. He actually liked the tweet. So he's making no secret of the fact that he wants to get rid of the trolley, as he calls Boris Johnson. Now, look, I don't think we should be allowing Cummings to dictate who is Prime Minister of this country.
I mean, Cummings is a mad genius. He's fantastic at campaigning, but he should only campaign. He should not be anywhere near government or anywhere near policy. But it's interesting to me that the media have spent the last 6 years calling him a liar. So over Brexit, over COVID, they've called him a liar all the time. And now his word is gospel.
Oh, yeah.
Now that he wants to take down
trust whatever he says
now. I just want to say, not all the media, by the way. There were some of us that always insisted that this man was not to be trusted. I mean, he's almost got psychopathic tendencies over the whole Boris situation.
Well, Rebecca Reid, I think we can certainly say that he's quite obsessed with bringing down Boris Johnson. To play devil's advocate, though, Rebecca, he would say he's doing that for the good of the country. He doesn't believe that Boris should be Prime Minister.
I don't think he would say that, because I don't think he's particularly nice, but I don't think he's... I don't think he pretends to be nice to be likeable. I think he would say, I really hate him and I want him out, and that's why I'm doing this.
But the point that I'm making is that he doesn't think he is capable enough to be Prime Minister.
So I think this is the question that we seem to have completely forgotten to talk about. I don't really care what people do during the rules. Politicians have always considered themselves above the rules, particularly in times of crisis.
Do you mean specifically around COVID or just in general?
I say this every week. Winston Churchill didn't do rationing, kept his lights on. There was a belief back in the 1940s that as long as he did a good job, he should be allowed to have his cigars and his champagne and his lights on.
So you don't care about the parties down the street?
I don't really. If they do their jobs properly and they do it well, I don't really care if 150 people have different rules than I do.
So do you think it's unfair for Boris to potentially lose his job over
I think the question is he the best person to navigate what is going to be a terrible 2 years ahead of us while we try and recover from this? Is he the most sensible person? Does he have the best grip on the country? Can he help navigate what may well be a recession? I don't know. I am not well informed enough economically. My instinct is that Rishi might be the right person because he's a very good economist.
The lefties love him, that's for sure. I mean,
good economist.
Dawn, I would say the issue is, as well, this is all happening very fast all of a sudden. None of these Tory leadership contenders, if Boris loses a no-confidence vote, are ready for a campaign. I mean, you've got Liz Truss on a plane to Australia, I think, right now.
But she's doing Liz's Fizz meetings as well, evidently, which is not a party, obviously. It's a bit...
What's that?
I just worry, Dawn, I'm just going to say, I worry that we are rushing into something.
Look, the job at the moment is a poison chalice. And I think if the no-confidence vote goes through, I think what will happen is that the Tory party will try and hold on to Boris for now, because putting someone new in there will ruin that person's chance.
But don't you think we should have the person who is best at being Prime Minister, not the person who followed the rules the best?
Okay, of course we should, but it's how we get there. Dawn Neeson, Rebecca Reid, Calvin Robinson, do stand by. Lots on this breaking news tonight. Could the 1922 committee be hosting a no-confidence vote on Boris Johnson as early as next week? Lots of rumours in Downing Street that lots of rumours in Westminster that 54 letters will be received tomorrow. Now, COVID hysteria truly knows no bounds in Australia. Not content with forcing draconian measures on the human population, they're turning their mania on the pets. 7 News Australia is reporting that there's now a push to import specially formulated COVID vaccines for domestic animals before cases explode. That's despite the fact there are currently no known cases in the country. Leading Sydney vet Dr. Sam Kovac says he's been inundated with requests for a vaccine at his clinics as anxious owners seek to protect their furry family members. And according to this bizarre report by the mainstream news channel, pets could be suffering in silence. Love gone mad.
The possibility of Samantha Shapiro's rescue dog getting severely sick from COVID is her worst nightmare.
Because she is much older, absolutely. I think she is a lot more susceptible to it.
To ease the fear, she wants her staffy vaccinated.
I would feel like so helpless and so defenceless knowing that possibly there was something that possibly could have saved her.
Would you vaccinate your pet?
Absolutely, why not?
I absolutely would. Well, I don't want my pet to get sick.
I've lost it, folks. They have completely lost it, and we're going to be talking about that Australian situation in just a moment. But also coming up, as a veteran Tory MP confirms reports of 20 more letters of no confidence in the Prime Minister and a vote of no confidence possible as soon as Monday. Is this the end for Boris Johnson? We discuss all of this breaking news shortly in our Media Buzz. But next, would you trust a reformed ISIS runaway? Tarina Shakil, the first British woman jailed for joining the death cult in Syria, will plead her case, explain how she was de-radicalized, and reveal her plans to help other victims of extremist grooming. This is sure to be a fascinating interview, her first live TV interview. Don't miss it, straight after the break.
Good evening. A bit of rain around tonight and tomorrow as a band of wet weather moves southwards. Behind it, brighter skies will follow, but also we'll see a cold wind starting to increase. The winds have been pretty light recently thanks to high pressure, but weather fronts are slowly edging in. Been bringing some rain across western Scotland and Northern Ireland through the afternoon, and that wet weather will continue to trickle southwards. We'll see a little bit arriving across the far north of England through this evening, and some fog likely to thicken up once more across the south. That could be quite dense during this evening as well, so just be aware of that if you're heading out on the roads. Further north, we'll see another area of rain come into Scotland, Northern Ireland and later northwest England. Could see some pockets of frost across the south where the skies stay clear, but generally staying a touch above freezing, certainly for most towns and cities. Quite a grey start then tomorrow across northern England, Wales with a bit of rain, and could be some heavier bursts of rain for a time across southwest England. The rain will be fairly light and patchy across East Anglia and the southeast around the early afternoon before it clears away. And as I said, most places brightening up with sunny spells. Temperatures around average, but feeling colder with the wind. And that wind will be bringing some snow showers across the Northern Isles and even into the mainland of Scotland. Some snow is possible through the evening. It could turn icy as well. Ice, sleet and snow showers also then move down the eastern side of England during the course of tomorrow night. Scattered, but as I said, could cause a few issues on the road as temperatures start to fall away. It's a frosty start to Thursday for a good chunk of the UK. The odd shower for Pembrokeshire and Cornwall, and still 1 or 2 for Lincolnshire and Norfolk. But apart from that, most places on Thursday having a sparkling day of winter sunshine, but it will be colder. Only 4 or 5 the top temperature for most places. It'll turn quite cold on Thursday night as well, and we're going to continue to have frosty mornings in the outlook. But with high pressure moving back in, not much rain in the outlook either, with many places staying dry into the weekend.
Hello there, I'm Eamon.
And I'm Isabel.
And you're watching the GB News digital stream across the United Kingdom.
And around the world.
If you're here in the UK, you can also watch us on your TV screen. GB News is Freeview channel 236.
On Sky, we're channel 515.
626 on Virgin Media.
Just remember, you might need to retune your TV to watch the channel.
Yeah, and if you are doing that, find out more about retuning by going to gbnews.uk.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilized conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamon.
And Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
Now, my next guest shot to infamy as the so-called Tawi Jihadi after she became the first British woman to be jailed for joining ISIS. Aged just 24, Tarina Shakil told her family she was taking her toddler son on a beach holiday to Turkey, but instead used her student loan to cross the border into Syria to join the terror group in 2014. But unlike the ISIS bride Shamima Begum, she put her life on the line by actually fleeing as the horrors of the caliphate became horrifically clear. Tarina was arrested when she landed back at Heathrow Airport in early 2015, and after being convicted of terror offences a year later, she was sentenced to 6 years behind bars. After completing a de-radicalisation programme and being released halfway through her sentence, Tarina now believes she's fully reformed and is working as a cleaner as she rebuilds her life. She's also making her own TV documentary that she hopes will provide a warning to other young women at the risk of being radicalised by terrorists. But is all of this really enough for the British public to give her a second chance? Well, she has bravely decided to give her first live TV interview tonight, and she joins me in the studio. Tarina, look, it is so lovely to have you here. I watched your documentary. I have to admit, on the whole, I liked you and I believed you. But I cannot understand, I simply cannot understand how someone who seemingly had so much going for them, lived in a great country like the UK, had a supportive family, would defect to fight for ISIS. And can you understand why some folk are going to be sitting at home watching tonight saying that 3 years in jail, it's not enough. It's not a big enough punishment for what you did.
I mean, I totally get that reaction about 3 years not being long enough, and some people may be of that opinion. However, at the time when I decided to run away, you know, yes, I was living in a great country like England and had a supportive family, but the life I was living at that time, in my marriage, a lot of domestic violence, really unhappy. Unfortunately, years of that had built up to me feeling like there was nothing else for me to do. I had nowhere else to turn, nowhere else to go. And a supportive family, when you're speaking to people online and being groomed, you know, you're isolated from your family.
So how old were you at this point?
24.
So you're 24 years old, and you go down what I would describe as the rabbit hole of social media.
Yeah.
And it's Facebook, where you met these folk who ended up radicalising you and encouraging you to go to Turkey. So what happened on social media? Why on social media were you all of a sudden posting ISIS messages, seeming to support this organisation? How on earth can Facebook radicalise an ordinary British woman to that extent?
I mean, I was speaking to people who were in Syria fighting, and they would always put their point across and justify what they were fighting for. And, you know, it became apparent that they would say to me, you need to make hijra. Hijra is Islamic migration, and kind of led you to believe that you have to go and live there, otherwise you'll go to hell if you stay in a country that's not a Muslim country. And you kind of felt like it was your obligation, really. So it was to do with the people I was speaking to and the things that they were saying.
Okay, so you end up in Syria, and unlike some of the other ISIS brides that we've seen, very quickly you realise, holy cow, I have made the biggest mistake of my life.
Yeah.
But can you just confirm to me, and can you look me in the eye and confirm to me that you were not responsible for any violence over there? Because there are some messages that you sent that have raised the question as to whether you were or not.
No, absolutely not.
So you were never involved in any murders of anyone, any killings of anyone? You were never involved in any violence personally?
No, absolutely not.
And so you're over there, you're in a house, you're at least witnessing terrible things going on around you, and you realise you've made the biggest mistake of your life.
Yeah.
So how does it feel in that moment?
Despair. You know, feeling that I will never be able to come back, and even if I did, you know, is there any point going back anyway? Because I'm in a lot of trouble when I go home. I'm going to go to prison, they're going to take my child off me. But it just came to the point where, you know, the need and the want to go home just became greater than thinking about what was going to happen to me upon return. So at that moment, you know, it was despair is probably the only word I can use.
Tarina, you're an intelligent human being. The time that you went over, ISIS were beheading Brits. Surely you knew what this organisation was about.
Yes, I had seen them things in the media. And, you know, the only thing I can say is that there's no justification for that. I can only offer an explanation, and I guess I just become so consumed in, you know, searching for this euphoric happiness as it had been sold to me, and, you know, making hijra, migrating for the purpose of living in a Muslim country. I guess I became fixated on that as opposed to what I should have.
But you had a normal upbringing. I mean, the rumours were you were a fan of The Only Way is Essex, which is why you're referred to as the Tawi Jihadi. What was it that turned you against our culture?
I was never turned against the culture. If I had turned against the culture, I don't think 7 weeks would have been enough to bring me back to loving the culture. It wasn't about that.
No, but you would argue that ISIS was at war with us. I mean, look at the Manchester arena bombings, the killing of those very young Brits.
ISIS had, is responsible for a lot of horrific things. Any attacks that happened on the West happened when I had already returned.
Okay.
So
then you get out, and it's quite a miracle that somehow you are able to make it out of Syria and back to Turkey. But when you arrive back in the UK and you're arrested by the police, you don't tell them the truth. So I want to play some of your police interview, and I'll get you to respond off the back.
To leave this place, why have you brought me here? I don't want to be in this place. I want to go back to Antalya. And he said, no, it's impossible for me to let you leave because maybe you will alert the police of this place, maybe you will bring problems for this place. It's impossible, I'll let you leave. And I said, but you brought me here and I don't want to be here. And then they just drove across this farmland and then we'd entered Syria.
That wasn't true, was it?
No.
The judge in your trial said that you embraced ISIS. He sent you down for 6 years. You served 3 years in prison, 3 years on licence. Were you de-radicalised before you went to prison?
I would say it's been a process of whilst being in prison, being outside of prison. But I think once I had made the decision to come back and just being here, I had forgotten about Syria and dealing with the trauma of being on bail and not having my child with me. I'd pretty much turned my back on that anyway.
Because the issue that you've got now, Tarina, and of course I absolutely believe once people have gone to jail, they have served their time, of course people have to be rehabilitated and given a second chance. But you saw what happened with Usman Khan, who was also out of prison when he committed that atrocity at London Bridge. So how can we trust you? How can the British people trust that you are truly de-radicalised now?
You know, I've been home, I think it's going to be 8 years this year. I have been in prison for 3 years. You know, my actions, I guess, speak for themselves. Since coming out of prison, you know, have like 2 jobs. I work 50 hours plus a week. I work hard.
And I'm delighted about that.
Thank you.
No, I am, because you've got to build this up.
I'm invested in a life here, and that's all I can do.
Do you love the UK now?
I've always loved the UK, and I always will love the UK.
Now, Tarina, we've got Shamima Begum, who is in one of these camps in Syria, and the government doesn't want her to return, the British public doesn't want her to return. Do you think she deserves a second chance like you got a second chance?
I get asked this question all the time, and, you know, I can't give a yes answer because I can't fiercely advocate for somebody when I don't know what their intentions may be when they come home. But if somebody genuinely, truly is like, wow, I made a mistake, I want to go home, send me to prison, then I guess so. I can't say no because I've been in a similar situation. However, you know, they will have whatever information they have about her, and which is why they've made decisions that they've chosen to make. So, you know, I'm all for redemption and giving people a second chance, but unless I knew more about the situation or what people's genuine intentions were upon return, I wouldn't really put myself out there to...
Have you been in touch with her at all? Have you reached out?
No, never. I don't.
What advice would you give her?
I don't think that anybody that's out there that wants to come home realises just how much of a long journey it is ahead. I know I definitely thought when I was there, you know, as soon as I get back to England, everything's going to be okay, this nightmare will be over, I'm going to be back home, I can put it all behind me. It's just the start of a really long journey, really.
And if there's any young person out there right now getting involved in the world of radical Islamist terrorism online, considering leaving the UK to join a terrorist organisation, What is your message to them?
Absolutely, don't do it. Don't get involved. Reach out. Speak to friends and family, because often groomers will isolate the individual. You know, speak to somebody if you're being told things are from Islam. Go and speak to an imam. Just reach out. Don't never take nothing from one source. You know, I've seen people along the journey who are, you know, doing real life sentences like 25, 30 years for getting involved in this, and because their partner had done something, and, you know, just don't make that mistake.
Can I give you a piece of advice, Tarina?
Yeah.
I think you should make it your life's work to help de-radicalise young British folk who are getting mixed up in terrorist organisations. And I think that is the way that Brits will start to trust you again.
Yeah.
And I think it's very important work, because we see it happening on a daily basis.
Yeah.
More and more Brits getting involved in radical terrorism. And I look at your story and I think, OK, you are back here now, but actually your life is going to be 1,000,000 times difficult more than it would have been if you hadn't had made that terrible decision to go and join ISIS in Syria. So I think you should make that your life's work. And I think that is the way that you can turn a terrible decision.
Yeah.
And I'm never going to say that it wasn't a terrible decision. I think joining ISIS was the worst mistake you could ever make. And it potentially caused a lot of damage.
Yeah.
But I think you need to make it your mission now to stop other young Brits doing the same thing, because they should learn from you.
I mean, and that's the plan.
OK, good stuff. Well, Tarina, Shaquille, thank you so much. Absolutely fascinating interview. I really appreciate it. Coming up, after booting out Djokovic, Australia's heavy-handed establishment has cracked down on our Ashes hero. How did freedom-loving Aussies let their country become the most miserable on earth? And is there any hope for change? Australian lawyer and writer Helen Dale joins me for Uncancelled. But next, could this be the end for Boris Johnson? A veteran Tory MP has confirmed to this programme 20 more letters of no confidence are expected, with a vote possibly coming as soon as Monday. We'll discuss all of the breaking news on the Media Buzz, plus bring you a first look at the newspaper front pages hot off the press.
Hello there, I'm Eamon.
And I'm Isabel.
And you're watching the GB News digital stream across the United Kingdom.
And around the world.
If you're here in the UK, you can also watch us on your TV screen. GB News is Freeview channel 236.
On Sky, we're channel 515.
626 on Virgin Media.
Just remember, you might need to retune your TV to watch the channel.
Yeah, and if you are doing that, find out more about retuning by going to gbnews.uk.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamon
and Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
And we're back, breaking news tonight, so let's return to tomorrow's News Tonight in our Media Buzz. And breaking tonight, Plan B is set to end on January the 26th. Boris Johnson expected to make a formal announcement tomorrow following a cabinet meeting to discuss the latest data. A government spokesperson said decisions on the next steps remain finely balanced, and noticed that Plan B was brought in specifically to slow the rapid spread of the extremely transmissible Omicron variant and get more jabs in arms. But let's take a look at the front pages, which of course are going to be looking at this big Boris Johnson leadership crisis too. Not The Sun, though, which I will tell you reports that Strictly dancer Nadia Bichkova has split from her footballer fiancé. During the last series, the paper reports she confided in her TV show partner, Dan Walker. I will tell you, though, up there on the big news of the day, Harry Cole, the political editor, saying it is a pork pie plot to oust Bojo. The Times say Red Wall Tory MPs team up to topple Johnson. The no-confidence threshold may soon be reached, and it could depend on the Red Wall seats that Boris won in 2019. Very similar headline to the Times in the Eye. It leads with Tory plotters in talks to topple Boris Johnson. MPs say the Prime Minister's attempts to keep his job haven't worked, with one being quoted as saying, "I don't think people buy it." The Guardian leads on Plan B coming to an end on January the 26th, and a clamour amongst Tory MPs to replace Boris Johnson as Prime Minister. The Daily Express, and remember, this has been the newspaper that has backed Boris to the hilt, but maybe even are turning. They say senior Tory MPs have claimed they have nearly enough support to oust Boris Johnson. Of course, under the 1922 committee rules, Conservative MPs can trigger a no-confidence vote by having 15% of their MPs write a letter to the chairman, Graham Brady. The Daily Telegraph, of course, they were first on this story earlier tonight, and they have more details on the rebel plot. The paper reports that while the PM was busy denying that he was aware an alleged Downing Street party was a work event, 20 Tory MPs from the 2019 intique were meeting to discuss their letters of no confidence. And the Daily Star, not only do they have Dawn Neeson on there, but look at this. Pinocchio, I am not a liar. Bozo mocked by old pal Nobbo. Brainless Raab sticks the knife in, and Rishi fails to back daft boss. And perhaps that's the paper that sums up the sorry state of our politics the best this evening, folks. The aforementioned Dawn Neeson back with me alongside the Conservative commentator Calvin Robinson and the author and journalist Rebecca Reid. Now, those reports leading the papers that 20 Tory MPs are expected to deliver letters of no confidence in Boris Johnson tomorrow was confirmed on my show by Andrew Bridgen, putting his premiership in peril. Do you believe this report from Christopher Hope to be correct?
Yes, because I was with him when they told him.
Really? So it's happening? 20
It's going to happen.
MPs.
I think that will push over the 54 required to trigger a confidence motion vote.
And you believe that there's already 34 letters submitted in that case?
I think it'd be very, very close to that number, yes.
More charming then.
And Mr Bridgen also told me that a no-confidence vote could take place as early as Monday or Tuesday. Now, Boris has previously been dubbed Britain's Teflon leader, but with the PM's popularity dropping to an all-time low this week in wake of that criticism of his COVID strategy and those Downing Street parties, could this really be the end for Boris Johnson? Calvin Robinson, look, I don't know enough about this yet, but I do have a feeling in my gut that these plotters may be going too early. Because, of course, it's one thing to get the confidence vote. It's quite another thing to
win the vote.
Well, what's your take on this?
So I've just been conferring with a number of MPs during the break, and I think what they're saying is, well, Theresa May won hers, but she had the whole Remain camp on her side. Boris doesn't have a camp to back him. So if it does go to a vote of no confidence, he could lose. The Red Wall are raging, and Sunak's silence should be noted, because that speaks volumes. My personal opinion is that, Boris Johnson won this election for those 2019 intake, for the Red Wall MPs. So it's interesting to know that they've gone against him. That's how serious this is.
I mean, Dawn Neeson, it's certainly a political crisis. If you're just talking about this from the point of view of wanting Boris out, I would say perhaps it would have been better to let him limp on for a couple of months, see if he can turn it around. Obviously, the May elections could be a car crash for Boris Johnson. This is very early because certainly the main contenders for his job, so the likes of Sunak and Liz Truss and Jeremy Hunt, although, please God, not Jeremy Hunt, that's just a personal opinion, they aren't ready. You know, they are not ready for a potential leadership campaign.
They're not, and if they do get enough letters to the 1922 committee complaining, 54 they need, the smart money at the moment is that is the case. The 20 Red Wall MPs are supposedly meeting Boris tonight. He's talking to them tonight to try and to convince them to not put the letters in, which they are aiming to do tomorrow. It's called the pork pie push, by the way.
Yeah, why is that? Explain that to me.
One of the MPs represents Melton Mowbray,
okay,
the home of the pie.
You've made me so hungry. All I want now is a pork pie.
Why did I mention food?
Around me, it's not a good idea.
So Boris is actually in emergency meetings tonight, talking to these MPs, trying to persuade them not to put these letters in.
Okay.
So can I just say, Dan,
yes,
it's important that the front bench is not ready. It's important that Richie and Truss and people like that are not ready, because we can't have another front bench MP leading the Conservative Party. We need some fresh blood, someone who's not complicit in all the lockdown restrictions.
I think I know who you
Someone
would
from
want.
the backbenchers. I'm not going to mention any names right now.
Who would you want? I'll go
Do
on.
you know who I'm going to predict?
Who?
I think Calvin would want Steve Baker, the freedom fighter.
That sounds like a good option to me.
I knew you'd be going for that one. Look, Rebecca Reid, it's not a done deal. It doesn't sound like a done deal.
No.
And this is always the danger of these stories, isn't it? Because, at 9:50, these 20 MPs from the 2019 intake might have been prepared to submit their letters. But what if they've been convinced by Boris Johnson?
And also, I think we all probably underestimate how hard it is when someone comes and sits across from you and goes, I gave you your career, I believe in you. What do you want next?
Yeah.
What do you want to happen? What can I do to make this happen for you? And also, when we saw him earlier, he looks sad. I am very, very soft-hearted, and I did look at him and thought, oh God, he probably needs a glass of wine and a hug. and I really, really don't like him as a person.
Well,
it was a glass of wine.
We're going to be all across this story. It's going to be a very big day on GB News tomorrow. Eamon Holmes and Isabel Webster, of course, here live from 6 a.m. And we're going to be live at number 10 Downing Street too. Dawn Neeson, Calvin Robinson, Rebecca Reid, thank you so much. But now at the start of the show, I revealed how wrong Scottish First Minister Nicola Sturgeon had got it over Omicron. Well, it's not the only thing she's got wrong, right? A hilarious video that's going viral on Twitter sums it up perfectly. Have a look.
This government, promises are made to be broken. Her promise to our young people to abolish student debt, broken. Her promise to parents and teachers to cut class sizes, broken. Oh, someone's got some explaining to do. First Minister, I'm looking at you. You spin, you hide, and you deflect. Well, that's rubbish, all due respect. Let's start off with that council tax. You said you would abolish that. And how about that attainment gap? Can you please start explaining that? NHS, we're looking for answers. And don't be blamed in Westminster. Tackle the drug epidemic, student debt. You said you would end it. We're tired of this. So many unemployed. How they gonna live? And look at all these hungry kids. And now we're facing COVID. Come on. Just one straight in. Hey, Nicola. We got a phone to pick with you. Tell you what the problem is. It's all these broken promises.
As a politician, am I allowed to spin the truth?
Oh, and you certainly do, Sturge. You certainly do. We reached out to the First Minister for a response, however, received no reply. We also reasserted our open invitation for her to appear on my show at any time, any day. The ball's in your court, Nicola. Coming up, the crowning moment of the show as I coronate today's gracious Britain and Union Jackass. And next, as 84% of Australians support Novak Djokovic's deportation, will the saga embolden its authoritarian leaders to ring-fence the country beyond COVID? Australian writer and lawyer Helen Dale joins me to discuss the formerly freedom-loving nation's terrifying descent into a police state. But just before that, let's take a very quick look at what's coming up in tomorrow's show.
Coming up on Dan Wootton Tonight, are your political views having a disastrous effect on your romantic life? Well, writer Emily Hill opens up about the frenzied reaction after declaring herself too right-wing to find love. Plus, a trio of Dan Wootton Tonight favourites give their unfiltered takes on the world. GB News star Nigel Farage, Spiked Online's Brendan O'Neill, and columnist extraordinaire Rod Liddle. And as ever, I'll break down the day's top headlines with my superstar panel. The Daily Mail columnist Amanda Platel, social media activist Adam Brooks, and political commentator Daisy McAndrew. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News.
But it's time now for Uncancelled. And this is where Britain's top commentators speak out on controversial issues without the fear of the cancel culture sweeping the rest of the media. Now, the Australian media is in full swing without defending men's champion Novak Djokovic after the tennis star turned freedom fighter was booted out of the country for refusing to bow to their COVID tyranny. Djokovic arrived back in Serbia yesterday after his visa was cancelled following a seesaw legal row with the Australian government over his vaccine status. But while he lost the battle, the saga is forcing people to wake up to the war being waged on liberty. In fact, I would say the pandemic, and I've covered Australia very closely throughout this pandemic, seems to have emboldened the police there so much that they've actually become downright authoritarian. Just look at the England cricket team trying to have a drink at their hotel.
Too loud.
Well, we got Nathan Lyon.
Yeah.
There's Carrie.
No worries. No worries.
Anderson.
Thank you.
So what we just video this just for the lawyers.
Right. We'll see you at 10:30, mate. That's all right. It's all right. Bedtime.
They're at it again. But with me now, Australian lawyer and columnist Helen Dale. Helen, what does the treatment of Djokovic say about Australia in the COVID world?
This is independent of COVID. As I've said on a number of outlets and across the spectrum, I am now the go-to person for explaining Australia. People have, or perhaps had, this image of Australia as a liberty-loving country. They tend to see it, foreigners often do, as being a bit like the United States. It could not be more different. In fact, if you were going to pick two countries, Anglosphere countries, that are not at all alike, it would be Australia and the United States. They're just not at all alike. Their historical and political traditions are completely different. And as I've said on other outlets, but I'll repeat it here, policing in Australia, going right back to the early days of settlement, has always had more in common with what British people who have travelled there will be familiar with this, would associate with the gendarmerie in France. They're armed. They're not like British police. Australian police are armed, and they will, in certain circumstances, like you saw in the protests in France with the Gilets jaunes, you will see them in they call them the black pyjamas, Australians refer to them with it. They sort of look a bit silky. And it's like the SWAT teams, the drug squad. And I can remember when I was working in Canberra for an Australian politician who incidentally was civil libertarian and got absolutely nowhere with trying to change this kind of police culture. I can remember when they took a set against a particular football team in Sydney, and the name of the team was the Western Sydney Wanderers. And I cannot understand why. There were several football teams around New South Wales. This is football, round ball football. It wasn't rugby ball. It's the same kind of football as you play here.
Yeah,
and they just took a set against this. Yeah, they call it soccer in Australia, but they took a set against this particular team, and you would have the stadium where the Wanderers played being ringed by police, all done up in SWAT gear. And that was in 2015. This is not a new phenomenon.
Okay, but where COVID, I guess, has changed things is that Australia seems to revel in its status as some sort of hermit kingdom because folk aren't allowed out, folk aren't allowed in, and doesn't matter how famous Djokovic is, he didn't follow the rules. And as you point out, it's very, very popular, incredibly popular, actually. I would say Scott Morrison, the Australian Prime Minister, probably had no choice but to get rid of the bloke.
There is an argument to be made, and I have seen this made by a number of journalists across the spectrum. I watched some footage from Australia. I saw a woman from The Guardian saying it, and I saw Rita Panahi from Sky News, which in Australia is closer politically to, say, GBNews here. Both of them said Morrison's behaviour with deporting Djokovic was incredibly poll-driven, and I think Panahi made the remark, she said it's almost as if the country is being run by focus groups.
Yeah, which is very depressing. Do you think this is going to impact Australia's international reputation, though? Because it doesn't look like a welcoming place anymore, Helen Dale.
I think what you've got now is more people are aware that it is a very, very different country and it runs itself very differently, particularly from the US. Now, the US is not the sort of major source of our tourists. The majority come from the closer countries around us and also from China. And of course, China is very authoritarian, far more so than Australia. But one thing this specific treatment of Djokovic reveals is this deeply Australian sense that is built into the border control politics of the country. We will decide who comes here and the circumstances in which they come.
What about protests too, Helen? Because protests against these incredibly strict COVID policies have been cracked down on by Aussie police with violence. It feels like if you go against the orthodoxy in any way...
It was shocking in Victoria. The Victorian police have become notoriously the worst in the country. Victoria had by far the worst lockdowns in Australia. That's the other thing to remember. It is a federal system. Each state is very different. So when you like the United States, huge difference between New York and Florida, or California and Arizona, just completely different. Australia is the same. Melbourne had the longest lockdown of any city in the developed world. There are other major cities and parts of Australia that have had no lockdowns or 3 days total. So this is the other thing. The federalism complicates the picture.
Thank you, Helen Dale. It's been absolutely fascinating because I think you're explaining that there is a real historic context to what we've been seeing in Australia, both in terms of Djokovic and COVID. But I have to say, it's a country I love. It's a country I've got lots of relatives in, but I'm very angry.
If I can make just one tiny point before I go. You know how we've had these parties in Downing Street and the powers that be not following the rules that they imposed on the rest of us? The Australian cultural value that nobody gets to be exceptional, including Novak Djokovic, who cut down the tall poppy, means the closest that any political leader has come in Australia to breaking the rules that they imposed on the Australian people was that at one point Dan Andrews went on a holiday at the wrong time.
Wow.
So that is the essence of the cultural difference.
No, it's fascinating stuff. Helen Dale, thank you so much for explaining to us tonight. Time now, though, to reveal tonight's Greatest Britain and Union Jackass. My superstar panel back with me. Dawn Neeson, your nomination for Greatest Britain. I think I'm going to like this one.
You are indeed. My nomination for Greatest Britain is GBNews for daring to play the national anthem every day where the BBC would not go near it.
So on a similar theme, Calvin Robinson, your Greatest Britain nominee.
Nadine Dorries for finally defunding the BBC.
Yes, let's do it. But will she be able to follow through if Boris isn't in post? Rebecca Reid, you've got an Australian theme to your Greatest Britain nominee appropriately after that conversation.
I think I have Emma Raducanu because she plays some nice tennis and I just thought it was a nice change.
No, it is. Good on her. Good on her, because we wanted to win this Aussie Open now, given that Djokovic is gone. All right, well, obviously, Dawn, you've won that, but come on. Of course I was going to go for GB News. It was so lovely to hear the national anthem playing out at 5:59 this morning before Eamon and Isabel. Your Union Jackass nomination, Calvin Robinson.
Biden for suggesting that George Floyd is somehow greater for race relations than Martin Luther King.
This was astonishing for me. We've got the clip, actually. Let's just take a little listen to it because, honestly, I couldn't believe what I was hearing.
But even Dr. King's assassination did not have the worldwide impact that George Floyd's death did.
That is a bad take. That's all I'm going to say on that. That is a bad take. Your nomination, Dawn Neeson, for Union Jack.
It's Dominic Cummings, Golem from Lord of the Rings, look-alike with stalker tendencies.
Dawn, you're so mean.
Don't want anywhere near you.
Sorry, that's made me laugh. Rebecca Reid, your nomination.
Opposite of Calvin, Nadine Dorries. She's a dick. But also, generally speaking, the fact that she's the culture secretary...
Why, Rebecca? I thought...
She found out earlier...
Are you just jealous because she sells lots more books than you?
If I had written The Nurses of Lovely Lane, I would throw myself off the top of the chart.
I think you sum up the quinoa coiffine set who don't like the fact that she is a working-class hero and a best-selling author.
That is what everybody always says whenever you critique her, but the thing is she is not particularly good at her job, and she found out this week that young people watch TV on YouTube. If I was that ignorant, I wouldn't be boasting about it.
OK, well, my winner is Calvin Robinson because that comment from Joe Biden was just insane.
That was weird.
What a brilliant superstar panel tonight, though, navigating that breaking news. Dawn Neeson, Calvin Robinson, Rebecca Reid, thank you so much. I'll be back again tomorrow from 9 p.m. It's time for headliners now, though. Good night.
Good evening. A bit of rain around tonight and tomorrow as a band of wet weather moves southwards. Behind it, brighter skies will follow, but also we'll see a cold wind starting to increase. The winds have been pretty light recently thanks to high pressure, but weather fronts are slowly edging in. Been bringing some rain across western Scotland and Northern Ireland through the afternoon, and that wet weather will continue to trickle southwards. We'll see a little bit arriving across the far north of England through this evening, and some fog likely to thicken up once more across the south. That could be quite dense during this evening as well, so just be aware of that if you're heading out on the roads. Further north, we'll see another area of rain come into Scotland, Northern Ireland and later northwest England. Could see some pockets of frost across the south where the skies stay clear, but generally staying a touch above freezing, certainly for most towns and cities. Quite a grey start then tomorrow across northern England, Wales with a bit of rain, and could be some heavier bursts of rain for a time across southwest England. The rain will be fairly light and patchy across East Anglia and the southeast around the early afternoon before it clears away. And as I said, most places brightening up with sunny spells. Temperatures around average, but feeling colder with the wind. And that wind will be bringing some snow showers across the Northern Isles and even into the mainland of Scotland. Some snow is possible through the evening. It could turn icy as well. Ice, sleet and snow showers also then move down the eastern side of England during the course of tomorrow night. Scattered, but as I said, could cause a few issues on the road as temperatures start to fall away. It's a frost